I'm joined now by the Iranian academic Mohammed Marandi. Professor, thank you for joining me again on Uncensored. You must be feeling in Iran pretty twitchy about the way things are going, aren't you? Because all your proxies have come under relentless attack by Israel. You've now seen in Syria the Russians fleeing and with them taking Assad. That's another potential power base that's been wrestled away from you. Where does this leave Iran, other than, according to Donald Trump, very weakened?
No, Palestinians are not proxies. They are living under occupation. And Hezbollah are not proxies. They were fighting to stop the genocide in Gaza, and so was Ansarullah, and so they continue to do so. The fall of Syria, I think Professor Mearsheimer said it quite well. The U.S. used ISIS and al-Qaeda operatives and won. If that's a good thing, fine. You should be very happy. 7/7 in London, the bombings, fine, if that's what you like. If the Manchester bombings, the bombing in Manchester was fine for you, then I guess that's your choice. If 9/11 was fine for you, then that's fine. If Al-Qaeda is okay, then that's your choice. We don't think it's a good idea for Syria.
Donald Trump is about to be inaugurated as president again. He's been very critical already about Iran. Reports today from America suggesting he's going to massively intensify sanctions and other financial measures against your country. You've got to be concerned, haven't you, that Donald Trump feels that the Biden administration was way too weak with you as a country, and he intends to be a lot stronger.
Well, the world has changed in the last 8 years, Piers, and Iran is much stronger. China, Russia, much more assertive. The global South is different, and the United States has many challenges. It would be smart for the new president-elect to rethink his policies. I saw a Wall Street Journal article which said that people around Trump are thinking about strikes on Iran. That would be catastrophic for the world. That, and I say this as the most anti-war person you can meet. I've survived chemical attacks. I've survived a gunshot wound. I have a shrapnel wound in the war. The chemical weapons, of course, given by the Europeans to Saddam Hussein. If there is an attack on Iran, quick question to you. If the world changed and Germany had bases in France, and then Germany attacked the UK, what would the UK response be?
Well, look, with respect, I'm asking the questions. I don't want to get.
I know.
No, I'm not going to get into your normal. You often do is you turn it onto questioning me, but I'm questioning you because you're the professor from Iran. So I don't want to get into hypotheticals about what may or may not be happening. I'd rather focus on what is.
I would imagine.
No, but hang on. I mean, I could give you another analogy and say, well, if I was in the UK and we had terror groups in France and Germany and Spain and Belgium, all constantly raining rockets and trying to attack us all the time, what would my response be to that if I knew that it was another country that was promoting and sponsoring it all? So we can all get into hypotheticals. I don't think it's very helpful.
Exactly.
I think what's more pertinent, if you don't mind me saying, Professor, is just your a suggestion, which has been repeated by the Ayatollah Khomeini, that Iran is strong and powerful, will become even stronger. Nobody else is seeing it like that. And they're certainly seeing what's happened in Syria and the deposing of a dictator in Assad and the way that Russia just basically keeled over and then fled with him in tow, that this is a sign that actually there is a shifting power in the Middle East, but it's not in the favor of Iran at all. In fact, quite the opposite.
Well, I tend to think that people in the region and the world have recognized what is happening in Palestine, and that those who are carrying out this genocide have been exposed to the world. And I think that is the most damaging thing to the West that supported this genocide. But to go back to what I was saying, the Iranian response would be what the UK response would have been. And that would lead to regional war. And because the United States has bases across our region, across the Persian Gulf, and all these small countries and that produce oil and gas. So a regional war in the Persian Gulf would lead to oil and a crisis in the oil market. It would bring down the region, but it would bring down the global economy. And that would cause massive upheaval across the world. And the refugee crisis as a result of Iraq and Syria and Libya. And by the way, these were wars that were advocated by Netanyahu. That refugee crisis would be nothing compared to what we would have if we had such a catastrophic war. So my advice to you is to stand up against these sort of threats to war. I remember the false flag operations of past. I remember in 1991, in Kuwait when they spoke about the incubators, or in 2002 when they spoke about Al-Qaeda in Iraq and chemical weapons, or in the Viagra in Libya, or the beheadings and the rape in Gaza, the fake beheadings. All of these were to justify war and genocide. And now they're talking about Trump being assassinated by Iran. What nonsense. They themselves assassinated Trump. And I promise you that if Trump is assassinated, they'll pin it on Iran, but they're the ones who are going to do it. All Trump supporters should know this. Iran has nothing to do with assassination. And now we hear...
Oh, please, come off it. Professor, come on.
Come on. Now we hear about...
How did you say that with a straight face? Seriously.
Yeah,
Iran has never had anything to do with assassination. Do me a favor.
No. Iran. Look at the accusations made against
the Iranian regime has never, ever killed anyone.
I'm talking about Trump.
Oh,
I'm talking
about one person assassination.
I'm talking about they tried to assassinate Trump twice, and now they're trying to say Iran wants to do it.
Well, no. What they said was there were credible threats, which they believe were credible, that Iran was plotting to kill him in response to the death of the deliberate killing by the American military of a senior Iranian commander, as you know.
I'm surprised at you because you were so skeptical about chemical weapons, but you can go down that line, but I'm down that road. But I'm telling Trump supporters...
Would you know out of interest? I mean, just to be respectful, would you know? I mean, if your military were planning an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, why would they tell you, with all due respect?
I read the Justice Department statement. Go and take a look and see how ridiculous it is. Take a look at it yourself and then discuss it tomorrow night. But just one other thing. The person who wrote this Wall Street Journal article, actually, one of the two, actually, when I was in Vienna 3 years ago, during the nuclear negotiations, I was a media advisor, and I was speaking to him, the guy who said that the Trump team is thinking about waging an attack on Iran, which would be an act of war. And as I said, it would be catastrophic for the world. I told him that in the 1990s, that it was the spring of Europe, the EU, and the 2020s is going to be the winter of Europe. You know how the European economy has been after the war in Ukraine. And I told him then that the Europeans should come to an agreement with Iran. Not that I sympathize with the European position on Ukraine. I think NATO moving eastward and the coup in Ukraine, all of these were provocations. But in any case, I said that an agreement with Iran is something that Europe needs right now. So be more flexible. And I said this will be a decade of winter for Europe. And I also said that if Europe works with Iran, then you can invest in Iran's oil and gas. And right now it's been 3 years. Europe could have had a much better economic situation than what it has now. There was almost an agreement. The negotiations after weeks led to a text given by the EU to the different teams. The Iranians took it back to Tehran. They changed two or three words. They gave it back to Joseph Borrell, the EU foreign policy chief. He said that the Iranian demands were reasonable. And what happened? The United States balked. No agreement. And so now look what happened to Europe. They have sanctioned Russia. They could not benefit from an agreement with Iran. They lose, and the United States, under Biden, has wrecked the European economy. We could have had an agreement. Iran negotiated with Europeans. Joseph Borrell said the Iranian demands were fine. This unreasonable behavior in Washington, if it continues under Trump, it'll be a dead end.
Okay, let me ask you this. We've just seen a massive uprising in Syria that has deposed one of the longer lasting dictators in the region. Are you not concerned that the same may happen in Iran. That the people of Iran may look at what happened in Syria, saw how easy it turned out to be to actually take down a regime that they hated, and that they may decide to do exactly the same thing in Iran.
Yes, two things. One is that what happened in Syria was as a result of the brutal sanctions and the US occupation and the theft of the country's oil and bringing the people to its knees. And then, you know that Jake Sullivan on February the 12th, 2012 said in Syria, Al-Qaeda is on our side. So as I said, as Professor Mearsheimer rightly said, the U.S. used ISIS and Al-Qaeda operatives and won. Fine. We think that Al-Qaeda is worse than what Syria had before. But that aside, no, I don't think that Iran is under any threat. Iran has a high degree of legitimacy. And I would invite you to come to Iran. Why don't you just come to Iran? And then maybe you'll find out that we're not Mordor and you don't live in the Shire. And that and I promise you we won't take you hostage.
Yeah, you know what? With all due respect to your promises about that kind of thing, I don't think I'll take the chance. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, but
I appreciate the invitation. I'm sure you would be very hospitable. Some of your friends, not so much.
Well, I promise you that no one is going to pay your ransom, and I bet your producers would probably demand something to take you back. But in any case, the offer still stands.
Very kind of you. Professor Marandi, thank you very much.